there, I'm Celine and welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be of me trying out different fantasy series. So fantasy is a very new genre for me. This is, at the time that I'm filming this right now, I have finished the 3 books that I am going to read through in this video. So even still, fantasy is a very new genre for me, and I went into this kind of like very blank slate. And the thing with fantasy is that I have previously been so intimidated by it because of the lush worlds that I see. Like if you look at fantasy genre like on Pinterest, you see very like dark and like green, just very regal settings, and it's beautiful. But the thought of reading something with that type of world, something so unlike our world, felt very intimidating to me. And so I think that's why I delayed things for so long. And when I finally kind of opened up to the idea of reading fantasy series, I started doing research, and of course the first recommendation that always comes up is the author Sarah J. Maas. She's very popular for her ACOTAR series and the Throne of Glass series, and because of the sheer amount of recommendations that I saw for both of those series, I was almost going to start ACOTAR. But after I went into a bookstore and I was grabbing, I had a quart of Thorns and Roses in my hands, and I turned the book around and I was seeing descriptions of it, and I just decided this is not something I want to read. So I was there on my phone in the bookstore just like scrolling through things, and there is apparently a lot of fairy steamy times, and I don't want to read that. So I decided no, I'm just gonna pass no matter how popular this is. I don't want to bring that into my library. So I didn't, and so that kind of spun me into watching tons of videos and reading tons of reviews on different fantasy books and series, and I went more so towards the route of YA fantasy, just because of the fact that the adult fantasy world tends to have so much steam, and again, that's just not something I want to read or bring into my space. So YA it was, and some of the most popular ones I decided to look for, and some of them, like Divine Rivals, which I will be reading in this video, kind of had some mixed reviews, and so I decided to start with that one just because it seemed like an easy one to open out the fantasy genre with. So now here, hindsight, I am glad that I started out with Divine Rivals. It's a very good ease into fantasy, I feel like, because it is a duology, and I guess the second book is supposed to have a lot more of the world building and the high fantasy kind of themes in it. The first book has a little sprinkling of it, but it's nothing too major or overwhelming. So now that I'm here and I've read a couple, if you are new to the fantasy genre, I would definitely recommend that one. That is a good one to start out with. I really enjoyed the story. So anyhow, I will go ahead and lead you on into me reading Divine Rivals. Future Celine here, because I totally spaced on telling you what Divine Rivals is about, and I just went straight into saying what I thought about the book. So here we are. I'm gonna read you the synopsis portion here that says, when two young rival journalists find love through a magical connection, they must face the depths of hell and war between gods to seal their fate forever. After centuries of sleep, the gods are warring again, but 18-year-old Iris Winnow just wants to hold her family together. Her mother is suffering from addiction, and her brother is missing from the front lines. Her best bet is to win the columnist promotion at the Oath Gazette. To combat her worries, Iris writes letters to her brother and slips them beneath her wardrobe door, where they vanish, into the hands of Roman Kit, her cold and handsome rival at the paper. When he anonymously writes Iris back, the two of them forge a connection that will follow Iris all the way to the front lines of battle. For her brother, the fate of mankind and love. Divine Rivals is an epic enemies to lovers fantasy novel filled with hope and heartbreak and the unparalleled power of love. So that's what this is about. I'm reading this now after I've read it. I want to read it again. Back for the first check-in with this book. I am at chapter 18, page 129, and this is going really good so far. I'll admit, both of the leads, the male and female lead, they are very kind of cliche, but I feel like you should kind of go into this expecting that this is a YA fantasy, so the characters tend to be a little bit more cliche and like predictable, like not super duper complex, but I enjoy that. I enjoy these characters so much. I say that they're cliche, but I love them so much. The main female lead, she is just like, she's amazing. She is so talented in what she does, but she's going through so much loss, and you're just in her head and you see how that's affecting her, and it's so good. And the male lead, Roman Kit. Okay, let me not even, I might end up going on a tangent about him anyways, but he is that kind of rich boy, tall, handsome, dark hair, blue eyes, piercing blue eyes or whatever, and it's undeniable how handsome he is and how talented he is, and he comes from a rich family and he went to a good school and all of these things. He's a very typical character. I've seen his character before in other shows and other books, but I love that type of character. I always love characters like that, and the dynamic between Roman and Iris, the two the main leads, is just, it's so good. The enemies to lovers in this is, it's good. Their banter is really good. It's funny, and you see how they just get on each other's last nerves, and you're just there like, oh my gosh, when is this gonna turn into like, oh wait a second, I might actually like him, or I might actually like her. My thing, and why I just say the enemies to lovers in this is good, is that because I'm only 130 pages in, and from what I know, this is going to be a series, or maybe it's just a duology, but there are multiple books. I saw a second book. I don't know if there's going to be a third one. And at this point in the story, in the first book, there's already hints of romance, and part of me likes that. I'm like, okay, we're jumping right into it. There's no like, you know, tugging at my emotions and playing with my emotions, but at the same time, the other part of me is like, this is enemies to lovers. There needs to be a little bit more like pining for the other person, and a little bit more of that push and pull, like tension, and there was that like in the beginning parts, and at this point in the story, it's not full-on romance, but they're already, I'll just say they've been separated for whatever reason, and they don't see each other every day like they did before, and he's like, wait, I miss her, and she's like, wait, I miss him, and all these things. So I just feel like it's kind of progressing very quickly, and I might have liked to see it kind of be extended a little bit more. I mean, I don't know how this first book is going to end, but we'll see. This book. I'm just gonna save my thoughts and opinions and my rating and all of that. I think for tomorrow, when I can be a little bit more coherent and I haven't been sobbing at one moment and then fangirling and squealing with joy the next minute and then kicking the air and punching the air in anger. Yeah, this book just made me feel all of the things, and I'm so mad. I am so mad right now that I do not have the second book in my hands within my possession right now, because I would have started that book right now. No joke, even though I have read the most pages in one day that I have probably ever in my life, I would have started that book right now. Right now, I would have started it. So I am like seething. I was about to pick up the second book, but I was like, no, let me just pick this one up and see how I like it. I might not even like it. Well, I liked it. Spoiler alert, I liked it. I really liked it. Book review time. Lighting is kind of crazy right now. It's nighttime, but I just wanted to get this in since it has been officially 24 hours since I have finished this book. And this evening I felt empty. Not having this book to come back to, and part of me yesterday was like, okay, maybe I should stop here and have like a little bit to read tomorrow, but I couldn't do that. I just couldn't. This book, let's go into my thoughts on it. It was so good. Let me just say, it was really, really good. Overall, I really liked the pacing of this story. It didn't feel too heavy on the fantasy element, but I think that is going to change in the second book. I feel like towards the end of this, it was really getting more towards like the high fantasy side, which is kind of like what I imagine when I think of the fantasy genre. I think of high fantasy and like crazy worlds and all of that, and that was starting to unfold towards the end of this book. So I anticipate the second book to feel very mystical and fantasy-like in that way. But the setting and everything, I love the historical kind of twist to it. Historical fiction is one of my favorites to read, favorite genres, and the romance in this. It just, this had me like just squealing at times, and then just, Roman Kit, he is our male, main male in this story, the male lead. There we go, there's the word. And he is just, I might have fangirled about him in my last clip. I think I might have, but I'm gonna go ahead and fangirl about him again. He's so great. I mean, he's just he's so protective over Iris, but not to a point where it's like where he's overly possessive, right? But you see how much care he has for Iris and how he would do anything to like take a bullet for her. Like, he would genuinely take a bullet for her because he just loves her that much. And I don't know, I love it. He's such a gentleman with her, and he's so, I mean, they were enemies to lovers, so there was like banter and like teasing, you know, like picking on the other person. But once they kind of break from that, he's so gentle with her, I feel like, and that is the way to my heart, okay? Anyway, the romance in this was so good. I do, however, still stand by my statement that I maybe would have liked to see the enemies to lovers kind of be dragged out a little bit more. I feel like the romance part of this, the pacing was very quick. Not very quick, but it was a little quicker than I would anticipate for an enemies to lovers book. It didn't bother me necessarily, but I think I don't know. I just think it could have been drawn out a little bit more, that aspect. But again, overall, the pacing of the whole story and how the events unfolded was really good with this one. So I'm gonna give this a 4.75. That's a pretty high rating. It doesn't get 5 stars. Like when I was like nearing the end, I was like, this is a 5-star read, but that's just like when I was like on a high with all of the emotions and my enjoyment with reading this. But just compared to the other things that I have read this month that have so clearly been 5-star reads, this is just lacking that little bit of edge. Yeah, but that's not to say that this was not amazing. This was so good. So if you haven't read this yet, I definitely recommend you pick it up and try it. I've got the next fantasy read picked out. I picked this up today, and I was super excited to find it. I went to a local bookstore, used bookstore, and I got a really good price on this. This is kind of an intimidating one. For me, it's a little bit more of like a classic literature type fantasy. It's a classic, and everybody has been harping on me to finally get on the bandwagon with this series. Maybe you can guess it by now, but if you can't, here it is. None other than The Lord of the Rings by the iconic Tolkien, Mr. Tolkien. Yeah, I still have not even watched the movies to this. I have watched the Hobbit movies. And I was going to move on to the Lord of the Rings movies, but I was like, you know what? I really want to try and read these books first, just because for me, it's really difficult for me to read a book after I have watched the movie adaptation for it, just because like I'm that much less like motivated to get through the book because I already know what happens. Like if I go into a book and it's like fresh and I've never experienced the story before in any sort of way, I can blow through a book because like I want to know what happens, right? But if I watch the movies first, like it happened to me with Where the Crawdads Sing. I watched the movie first and then I got the book, and I honestly DNF'd that book because I was just like, I already know what happens, and it's like a murder mystery type thing, and that's just, I was like, why am I gonna read this? I already know the story. Maybe that's just me and I'm dumb about that, but yeah, so I'm nervous for this one because it's like a whole whopping 1,000 and some pages. I mean, this is all 3 of the Lord of the Rings books. But nonetheless, it's so intimidating to me just because it's like older and just like heavy world building and just crazy things like that. But I'm really gonna give it an earnest try to just get through the books first and then watch the movies. So let's go ahead and get started with this one. I am back for the 100-page update on this book right here. It's honestly been a week and some days since I last filmed this, since I started this book. And that is just because I have been really busy and I have not been able to read at all for like a good week. So yeah, last night I finally picked it back up, and I would have gotten a little further, but I had to read the previous chapter over again and do some skimming on the chapters before that. And I even watched a little bit of like plot summary, videos on the first book just so that I could kind of like refresh my memory. That said, I really enjoy this story. It's not that it's boring. It definitely isn't. This story is super compelling. These characters are like, I love them already. It's just kind of a drag to read. And it's not that it's difficult to read in the sense that it's like difficult language and like old English, that type of thing. It's just more so that this book has what I consider longer chapters, and with the text being smaller like it is here, like this is a smaller text than I'm used to, and there's also just a lot jam-packed in here. These are like 15 to 25 page long chapters, and me, you know, thriving off of short chapters and like feeling like I'm accomplishing things, this feels just so draining to read. Even though I really enjoy this story, it's just like, I don't know what it is. It's like a mental thing for sure. It's just like, I want to feel like I'm accomplishing things, but I've only made it through like 5 chapters and I'm like 106 pages in now. So yeah, I was this close to DNFing this book last night just because I was like, I am lost and this feels super daunting. I did go ahead and like tab off where the second and third book start so that I can kind of give myself a visual cue and feel like I'm kind of accomplishing something and making a dent in here, but that didn't even help me last night. So what I might do with this is I might start watching the movie and then just kind of pause where I left off reading, and then just kind of do a tandem read / watch, just so that like I read a chapter and then go and watch the movie, just so I can, you know, really visualize what I'm reading. Even though I don't really have an issue with this book, I can pretty easily like visualize the world and everything that's going on. I think it just might motivate me to get through this a little quicker. It also doesn't help that yesterday I picked up a bunch of books that I'm super excited to read, so I'm just looking at that stack of books and I'm like, I want to start reading you, but I have already started this and I'm 100 pages in. I have like 350 something more to go, so I'm not excited about that, but I'm gonna try and make it through this. I really don't want to DNF this. We'll see. I really enjoy the story. It's just a drag to read. I'm probably going to put this back on the bookshelf today because I'm done. I just feel so done with this book, and I'm not even halfway through. I'm about at the halfway point, but I still have not reached it. I think I'm like probably 30 pages away from the halfway point. Yeah, this is just, I feel so like disappointed in myself that I'm not gonna finish this, or probably not going to. I'm just trying to power through and I don't think I can do it anymore. So I think I'm just gonna go to the films. It's such a drag to read. There are so many words per page, and these chapters they feel like they're long, but maybe that's just because the pages are so jam-packed full. And this chapter that I just finished, in my last kind of recap, I was saying that this world is not hard to envision, and that's because literally there are a couple chapters in here, and the one that I just finished is one of them, where there literally is nothing left to like imagine. They're walking through this like dark wood, and literally every single thing is described. Like, I feel like they went through and said, oh, and that grain of dirt is like this minuscule next to this pebble over here. Like, it's so descriptive. And while part of me is like, okay, cool, like I'm deep in this world and I can really envision it, then the other part of me is like, why do we need this much detail? Like, I didn't ask for this. it's just a little too much for me right now. So I'm feeling myself going into a reading slump, and it's so hard for me to get out of them. And I don't want to be there. I have so many books I have to read, and I feel like if I get into a reading slump right now, I'm just going to totally kill my momentum. And this book is just totally killing my momentum right now. So I think for the greater good of my my reading rhythm right now and mental health, it feels like, because I need a break from this book. So I think it's gonna go back on the bookshelf for now. I'm trying not to feel disappointed in myself. I hate not finishing books and putting them back and feeling like I have unfinished work. But I can't with this right now. So I'm going to watch the films. Actually tonight, it's a Friday night. It's rainy, so I'm just going to have a cozy night and just start watching the first film. And maybe, I don't know, that might spring up some inspiration in me to continue this, and I might take it back down. But for now, I'm just going to put a pause on The Fellowship of the Ring and start a new fantasy book. All right, I have finally made the executive decision to put The Lord of the Rings back on the shelf. I felt myself getting into a reading slump, and I want to stop it right there before it actually happens, because I was doing so good. So I'm like, I'm just gonna put it back. I think that's the best decision right now. And what I'm hoping is that after I finish the first film, I did start that last night. I'm hoping that after I finish that, I have some motivation to continue with the books. So if that happens after I finish that movie, I will pick up reading from the second book. So we'll see what happens with that. But for now, I'm trying to decide on what the next book is. I have two options here that I picked up the other day. Both of these I have heard a lot about, and these are both YA, just because I feel like that's just the genre that I, and kind of demographic that I like the most. And I am very well aware that Sarah J. Maas is like the fantasy author right now. Everybody loves her books, and I guess spoiler alert to March's TBR, if this video is going to come out after that or before it, I don't know, but I watched a complete plot summary of the entire ACOTAR series, and I will admit that the plot and everything in the story is good. There are definitely some holes, but it's good. It's good. I will admit that, but I just personally am not going to pick up those books and read them for myself, just because I don't want to read a bunch of fairy smut. So, anyhow, I have a couple options here. This first one here comes very highly recommended. A lot of people who are definitely more into the fantasy genre that have been kind of disappointed by some of the other YA fantasy series said that this one is really, really good. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and pick it up. This is a used book, so it's a little bit more beat up than I originally thought, honestly. But I had store credits at this local store, and so I got this for free. And if I end up really loving this, I will invest into the hardcover editions, just because I prefer hardcover. Even though this is like soft covers are a little bit more comfortable of a reading experience, I like hardcovers. But this one I am excited for, because apparently like it's an enemies to lovers, but like a legitimate enemies to lovers. Like there's a good part of this series that it's very high stakes. Like there's legitimate reason for them to not like each other. Like it's not just like, oh, he gets on my nerves, I don't like him for some reason, and then halfway into the book, it's like, oh my gosh, I love him, you know, that type of thing. So I am excited to read potentially a very good enemies to lovers with this one. This is another enemies to lovers. I guess fantasy kind of tends to have that trope. This is Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and I am so excited about this one. This has been described to me as like a fantasy enemies to lovers Hunger Games type of thing, and we already know how I feel about the Hunger Games. Okay, I will never shut up about it. It's like one of my favorite series, and anyway, we already know how I feel about it. Anything that gets described to me as like similar to the Hunger Games, I will read or watch it. Hands down, if it gets compared to that, I'm like, okay, I'm in, sign me up. So this is basically in the kingdom of Ilya, Ilya, however you want to pronounce that. There are basically two types of people, the elites and the ordinaries, and the king in this kingdom is like, kill all ordinaries because they're lesser human beings and we can't have cross mingling and, you know, cross breeding between the elites and ordinaries, so we gotta exterminate them all. And the prince is basically the one who leads the execution of that. So the girl, Peyton, she is kind of spending her entire life trying to pretend to be an elite, but I guess things happen and she gets put into these trials, or sort of like a competition between elites, and it's like a fight to the death type of thing, like the Hunger Games. So I don't know, I'm going to sit down and kind of decide on which one I want to start first, but this one, I'm excited about this one, let me just say. After some thought, I am going to go ahead and start with this one, just because this one I feel like will be a good way to wrap up this video. This sounds very much like a fantasy that I envision in my head. They are like in the land of fairy, and you know, they're with like elvish type people, and humans are bad and the fairies are so much better and elite, and they look down on humans and whatever. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with this one just because it feels very fantasy-esque. So even though Powerless is also, it is definitely considered a fantasy, but I'm going with this one, The Cruel Prince. It's a very popular one. I'm gonna go with this one, and we'll see how I get along with it. It's not that long, so let's go ahead and get started. Future Celine cutting back in again because I forgot to tell you what The Cruel Prince is about. I always seem to do this in videos that have a lot of clips. I always forget something, so you see Future Celine a lot. Don't mind that. So I guess I didn't feel the need to, or I didn't even think to do like a premise stop clip because this is so popular. But in case you don't know what The Cruel Prince is about, this is about, basically the main character in the story is Jude. Jude was 7 when her parents were murdered, and she and her 2 sisters were stolen away to live in the treacherous high court of Fairy. 10 years later, Jude wants nothing more than to belong there, but many of the Fae despise humans, especially Prince Carden, the youngest and wickedest son of the High King. To win a place at the court, Jude must defy him and face the consequences. So that's what this is about. And one of her sisters, by the way, is her, I'm pretty sure, identical twin. There is a scene kind of pretty early on where she's looking at her twin, Taryn, and she says, sometimes it's weird to look at her and see an image of myself. So yeah, they're kind of very different though. I feel like as twins seem to be, they're very different. Jude is very kind of more rough and tough, and Taryn can be, but she's a little bit more diplomatic and she's definitely more of a traditional lady, and she plans to make her way in the land of fairy by falling in love and getting married. So it's interesting to see their dynamic. And the second sister, I'll let you find out for yourself what her kind of deal is if you decide to read this, which I recommend that you do. It was good. I had a good time with this. Okay, see, these are the chapters that I needed coming out of Lord of the Rings. I must admit though, this is the shortest chapter I've ever read, but see, I'm feeling like I'm accomplishing things. Thank you. And you know, by the way, what a travesty that there are no fish sticks or ketchup or television in Fairy. We need to change that. It's a few hours later and I have been reading for a little bit now, and I just had a thought, like with the enemies to lovers in this, I mean, I'm only 30 pages in and maybe there's something more to it that we just don't know yet, but the enemies to lovers in this there's not like a super big reason as to why she doesn't like him. And again, maybe there's something more to it that we find out later, but at least right now, I mean, he's not the nicest person, okay? He's kind of a jerk, and that's reason enough to not like someone. Hey, I don't like anybody. If I see somebody that's like visibly like cruel to other people, the Cruel Prince, I won't like that person, right? But I guess I was expecting a little bit bigger of a reason than that. Maybe that's it. But I want to read you this one line and I'm just kind of like, okay. Anyhow, it says, and Cardan is even more beautiful than the rest, with black hair as iridescent as a raven's wing and cheekbones sharp enough to cut out a girl's heart. I hate him more than all the others. I hate him so much that sometimes when I look at him, I can hardly breathe. I can see that turning the other way around, okay? I mean, he's apparently gorgeous and all this. And I mean, we know how, you know, in every book or story or show or movie, I end up falling for the, you know, the dark-haired character, right? So I'm just saying I could see this turning the other way. And her being like, oh my gosh, he's so gorgeous. It hurts to look at him. Yeah. But anyway, I'm enjoying this so far. I'm having a really good time. It feels very ethereal and like, you know, I imagine this world just like somewhere like deep in the forest, and you know, you have the king's tower and palace and all of that, and Madoc, which is, well, can I say that? I can say that. The book opens up with it basically. Madoc is the guy who kills Jude's parents, and he brings her and her sisters over to his house, and he's the one who's kind of like taking care of them due to some reasons which I won't disclose, but anyway, I really enjoy this. It definitely feels, this says lush, dangerous, a dark jewel of a book. This definitely feels very lush and royal and like elegant and just that type of vibe, and I really, really enjoy it. The amount of tension that is in this book right now. I'm concerned for my heart rate and for my health. It's the coronation of the new king. Oh my gosh. Needless to say, things are messy. So much happened in this one chapter. It was kind of a long chapter, but I was there just fully engrossed in it. A lot happens and a lot has changed. For one, spoilers ahead. Again, if you don't want to hear it, skip ahead. I don't know how to talk about this portion, and I feel like I have to. I'm just like, I need to vent about this. The relationship between Jude and Locke is weird now. The festivities of the coronation have started, and Jude is dancing with her sisters, and then all of a sudden she is hand in hand with Locke, and they start dancing, and they have this whole exchange, like, Locke says, "Do you think you could love me?" And Jude says, "Yes." And then they just keep kind of going back and forth, and he says, "Would you weep over me?" or something like that. And she says, "Well, like, if you were hurt?" And he says, "No, if I hurt you." And she says, "Well, if you hurt me, then I wouldn't cry. I would hurt you back." Things are weird. I feel like maybe he suspects something about the body that she had to hide. I don't know, but it's weird. Carden is also weird. He is kind of, we fast forward and he ends up being kind of like MIA in the coronation room. And for one, when he was in there, he wasn't on the stage with the rest of the royal family like he was supposed to, which was weird, but I just kind of like boiled that down to he was very drunk and just too intoxicated to even realize what he was doing or what he wasn't doing. But he's weird. Something weird is going on. All of a sudden, Locke is all buddy-buddy with Taryn, and she's like tucking his hair behind his ear. And I guess after the coronation, we're supposed to meet this suitor that is going to ask Matic for Taryn's hand in marriage. That's weird. Yeah, just kind of a lot is shifting, and the betrayal, the big betrayal that happened, the plot twist of the book, I guess you could say. I was saying earlier that this book was kind of predictable. I did not predict that. And probably just like a chapter or two before, one could make, I had a speculation of some sort of weird thing going on with Matic, but I didn't think that that he was connected to this big event and big shift in the story. I just didn't think that he had that sort of involvement. Yeah, it's a lot. It's really good. It's very dramatic, and I have a lot of questions. So I am at book 2, page 246. So I have just like 130 some pages left in this book, so we'll see. I am going to read a little bit more. We'll see if I finish this tonight. I don't think so, but we'll see. I feel angry for Jude. Oh. There's so much going on, but the betrayal, her having the betrayal of her twin sister, I don't know why I smile when I feel like absolutely raging. I'm fuming, but you probably can't tell. I recall the words Locke said to me after I'd fought in the tournament and pissed off Cardin. You're like a story that hasn't happened yet. I want to see what you will do. I want to be a part of the unfolding of the tale. When he said that, he wanted to see what I would do. Did he mean to find out what would happen if he broke my heart? If I can't find a good enough story, I make one. Those are the lovely words of Locke. You know how in anime you see these characters and when they're fuming you just see like these white flames behind them? You know, turn that on in the background for me right now. I am so angry. I hate it when when the guy in the story plays the game. And he plays it well, that he fools everybody. And then, you know, hindsight is 2020. You see everything that they said and that they did. And you realize now what it actually meant and that they were just playing you the entire time. Cue female rage right now. Because... oh, if he steps out of Maddox's study, if I were Jude, I would be done playing nice. I would be done playing nice. I mean, I say that, but in reality, I am like, I hate conflict and I don't like handling things angry. This is just the feisty part of me speaking that, you know, thinks that I'm super fiery and can handle conflict well. But in reality, that is not me. But like my fantasy self is very feisty and fiery and handles conflict well. Yeah. Truly. Sister relationship destroyed. Truly. This is a fictional world. Why am I so upset? Why do I feel this betrayal so personally? Like, this is in the perspective of Jude. And I feel like this betrayal has been taken against me. Wow, Holly Black, you have made me feel things. I have not felt rage like this. Just like such burning anger in a while. And that's scary. I need to not do that. I need to calm it down. This is fiction. We finally find out why Cardin hates Jude. Well, I say lifting the crossbow again, glad to have a reason to reassert my position as a person in charge. Tell me! He leans in and closes his eyes. Most of all, I hate you because I think of you. often. It's disgusting and I can't stop. Oh my lord. What are you doing, Jude? The biggest plot twist just happened. I thought we already got the biggest plot twist, but turns out we got like 2 more. But this one is, I'm speechless still. Am I gonna say it? I'm gonna say what it is. I will. This is literally at like 5 pages from the ending of this book. This is kind of like the spoiler of all spoilers. So if you've kind of been spoiled of some things already, or if you've been completely skipping the spoilers, then definitely click away now, click ahead now, because this is, yeah, like I said, we're nearly at the ending and the biggest thing just happened that I did not expect or see coming at all. So for kind of a summary of where I'm at right now, Jude captured or imprisoned Carden and made him like she made him take an oath to her that he is to be at her service for the next year and a day. Weird, right? And so basically Jude and Carden and the rest of Dane's spies, the now deceased Dane, they make this plan to change up the order of who is going to be crowned the next High King. And it's not Carden, because he is the only one left in the royal family. Or so everybody thinks. It's Oak, Jude's half brother, stepbrother, who is a child. Turns out he is the child of Prince Dane and Locke's mother. Yeah. He's royal. He can be crowned the king. So they make this plan to steal the crown and place it on Oak's head. They start putting this plan into action. It has like 5 phases. They're like, okay, we've accomplished phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. They're going on to phase 4. And Carden has the crown in his hands, or not in his hands. He is right in front of Oak, who is holding the crown, and Carden is expecting that Oak is going to hand him the crown so that he can place it on Oak's head. What happens is Jude says, I order you to stay put. Do not move for the next minute. And Vivi and Jude say, go ahead to Oak. And he says, I crown you king, High King of Fairy. Carden does not want the throne. He doesn't. He has made that kind of clear in previous chapters. He doesn't want the throne. He's like, I would be terrible at it, and I don't want it. So he's obviously oblivious to this plan that everybody has they all made the plan together to make Oak the next king. But they kind of behind his back change up the plan, and he is there silently fuming. And that's where I stopped. I'm gonna keep reading, but that just happened. And the mom comes in and she says to Jude, we came up with your code name. And Jude says, what? And she expects that her code name is going to be the liar. But the bomb says, what else? The queen. This book. Oh my gosh. I finished it. The epilogue was in the human world, which was interesting. They were walking through a Target, buying pizza dough and chocolate. The things you buy at Target, right? That was a roller coaster. At some point in this book, I was feeling kind of skeptical and wondering if I would even want to continue with this series. It's a trilogy, I believe. I have no doubt about that now. I will be continuing with this trilogy for sure. I need to know what happens because things got so messy, and this wrapped up really well, but I need to know the continuation of this story. Cardan is on the throne. Jude and Cardan's bargain of a year and a day has not ended at the end of this book. Yeah. As of now, rating. Let's talk rating. I am tossed up between giving this a 3.75 and a 4-star. Or a 4-star. Let's see. I'm gonna think about the rating on this one. And next time I see you, I will go ahead and give an official rating for all 3 of the books that I read in this video. One of them attempted to read. So yeah. Overall though, right now, I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed it. It wasn't anything amazing though. Like, not life-changing. It was good though. All right, I am back for the final hoorah with these last 3 books. I'm going to give the final rating on all 3. Well, I can really do a final rating on 2 of them because I did not finish one of them, as we know. Let's start with Divine Rivals, the first one that we talked about. This one, I believe I ended up giving it a 4.75, but I'm actually going to change that. I was kind of thinking about this book last night, and I'm going to give it a 4.5, so just knock it down a little bit, which 4.5 is still a really good rating. I really, really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the setting. I'm looking forward to, in the next book, for there to be a little bit more of the fantasy lore in it. This one doesn't have that much in it. So I think it was a good one for me to start out with fantasy. But I do have a couple issues with it. My number one thing is the pacing on the enemies to lovers. Well, they're more so like rivals to lovers, and so I guess there wasn't that big of a reason for them to hate each other. But even so, they started out just really not liking each other, and then I feel like it kind of very quickly turned to I love her and I love him, you know, that type of thing. And they got separated at a point in the story, and kind of like very quickly she was like, I miss him, and he was like, I miss her. So yeah, that pacing kind of knocked it down for me a little bit. Other than that, I really enjoyed this, and it was a really good time. Again, I'm so looking forward to the second book, so I need to pick that up soon and go ahead and finish this duology. Next book, which I did not finish, but I promise, here is my verbal video promise that I will get back to reading this at some point. I don't know when, but I will read this trilogy, The Lord of the Rings. I was telling my dad that I think the mistake that I made with trying to read Lord of the Rings. I think I could have gotten through it a little bit better if I didn't get this big 3-in-1 edition, because they tried to, I feel like, condense the amount of pages as much as possible with this. This is like 1,000 and some page book. So I feel like they shrunk the text size and they fit so much on each page that for me it was very overwhelming. And I think that is the main issue that I had with this. So I might look at getting the books just individually and see if that helps. I honestly think that that will be the main thing for me. So yeah, I love this story. I've been watching the films. I love this world, but with reading it with this particular edition that I have, it just did not go well. So I will get back to reading this just with some different editions of the books themselves. And lastly, we have The Cruel Prince. I have thought about this one a little bit, and I have a final rating. I really want to try not to give like the not half points, but 4.75, that type of rating. I really don't want to be annoying like that and give that sort of rating, for one, because you can't do that on Goodreads, which is kind of annoying. Goodreads, please change that. I want to be able to give things 4.75 or 4.25 stars on certain books. There are certain books that are just that kind of slight decimal above or below, so please change that. Anyway, The Cruel Prince. When I think about this in comparison to Divine Rivals, there you go, I really enjoyed this book, but when I compare my enjoyment with this versus Divine Rivals, I would say I enjoyed this less. And I feel when I finished Divine Rivals, I wanted to move on to the second book right away. And if I had the second book of this right now, I would probably read it, but I don't feel like super pressed to like rush out right now and go buy it. Whereas with Divine Rivals, I felt that night, it was like midnight, and I was like, if Barnes & Noble was open, I would be begging to go there right now because I need to know how the story continues. But I don't feel that with this. It was a really good story, and I'm going to continue with it. That said, let's talk about rating. I'm going to settle at a 4, which again is a good, am I 4 stars? Am I? Here's the thing, is that story-wise, I would give this a, I just said I don't want to do like decimal ratings, but I would give this like a 3.75. It is what it is. 3.75, maybe 3.5. That's the rating that I would give it. But because of my enjoyment of this book, I'm going to factor that into my rating. I bumped this up to a 4. So there are kind of a few issues that I had with this. With Divine Rivals, it was just mainly that one thing. But with this, there's just a couple holes in the story, which I'm sure might get filled in the next books. But I feel like just certain things that even just took place in this, sometimes I was like, wait, but how, some things were a little convenient for me. And spoiler, again, if you've been skipping all the spoilers that I've been giving, just kind of click away for a second. I feel like at the end of this book, we kind of have a different view on Cardan. Like, Jude and Cardan are working in cooperation with each other. They don't necessarily like each other, but Cardan has kind of confessed that he hates Jude because he thinks about her so much, and he hates that. And they have kissed, and they just They have this desire for each other, okay? And I feel like we've forgotten how cruel he is too soon. Maybe that's just the thing with me. I tend to be a very forgiving person though, but with Carden, and sure, maybe some of the things that happened to Jude weren't directly, we kind of get an explanation from Carden that, you know, in relation to Valerian, let's just say, Valerian has a specific love for violence and torture, and Carden says he never wanted anybody to die. Jude asks him, like, why do you hate me so much? Why do you want to kill me all the time? And he says, I never wanted you to die. That was just more so Valerian taking things out of hand. But no. The way that he directly acted towards Jude and Taryn as well, I don't know. I feel like we're forgetting that too soon. Jude got her moment to kind of torture him a bit and have her be the one in power, and maybe that was satisfactory enough for her, but it wasn't for me. So that's kind of the big thing that I have with this, along with just some other smaller things. But yeah, I think I'm gonna be nice and give this a 4-star. Even right now as I'm saying that, I'm debating it though. I will settle on a 4-star. Story-wise, if I took my enjoyment of this book out of the equation, this would probably be a 3.5 or 3, between 3 and 3.5. Maybe that's a little harsh. I know that this is well loved, but I have some issues. So, but yeah, taking into consideration my enjoyment of it, I had a good time with it. This had me cackling. This made me feel things. I mean, we saw the rage. I was fuming at some certain parts in this book. So for that, I will give it the 4 stars. I think that is warranted. But that is everything I have for this video. I kind of wanted to get to 5 books, but I feel like this is going to be a long one because I kind of went into detail on a few things and started ranting at certain points with several of these books. So, yeah, it's just the 3 for today. Let me know if you'd like to see something like this again. Kind of like a part 2, like reading popular fantasy series books. Yeah, maybe I'll do this again. Maybe I'll do it with a different genre. Definitely let me know if there's a genre you would like to see me read. Just not horror. I don't read horror. I will read a thriller in regards to like a psychological thriller or like a murder mystery. Those I enjoy, but as long as they're not too... There's a line for me. I don't know how to describe it, but I have a line with that as well. I probably won't read romance, just to be honest. Yeah, but if there's anything else, if there's like some popular books that you would like to see me read and kind of see my thoughts on, let me know in the comments. And also let me know if you've read any of these and what your thoughts are on those. So anyhow, I will see you probably for this month's wrap up. Probably for the April one is going to be my next video. So anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you next time. Bye for now.